All right, let's see if I can do take two. So, since last week went over really well, it seems like with my hot takes after the game, I'll try another one. I don't really want to be doing videos unless I have something to say, and I kind of have something to say. So, this character here is a character from the TV show The Wire. Some of you may know. Oh well. He did a speech one time about 40-degree days. You know, people don't remember 40-degree days because they're either too cold or to do anything, or they're not cold enough to be miserable. That's a problem in fantasy football because guys have essentially three ranges of outcome. They're gonna help you win a week, they're gonna help you lose a week, or they're just a push. Like anybody could be in that spot. A push is better than obviously having them lose you the week, but they're not as good as the guy that helps you win the week, and you want as many guys out there that will help you win weeks. With having as few guys out there to help you lose weeks. It's a very simple way to look at fantasy football. So anyway, taking that away when we get into the Eagles offense here in a second, like Alexander Madison is a 40-degree day at best. And right now, hopefully, unless there's some hot take that some comes out of nowhere, like Ty Chandler, the backup running back for the Vikings, I'm going to be stashing him at the end of next week after waivers clear, because the Vikings just can't continue to function with a guy that fumbles twice. One was taken away by penalty, drops passes, and is just putting up 3.5 yards a carry. Ty Chandler's faster. He's undersized. The Vikings did run a passing down back, CJ Ham, in there, but the two of the three touches that Chandler had were designed. And I can only imagine that they have to try and get the ball to him because you got to get something going. Because otherwise, you have bad days, like 40-degree days. So from the perspective to finish this off with the Minnesota Vikings, I said in my Zach Wilson video that from a fantasy perspective, you want great players on okay offenses because they have to figure out ways to get those guys the ball. And if I watched the game tonight, I actually put the effort out to watch the game because there's nothing else to do. And Justin Jefferson did 11 for 159 on 13 targets, and they were moving him around the formation, putting him in motion, shifting him, stuff like that to get the matchups that they need to get him the football, because he's their best guy, and they don't have the ability to say, oh, you're giving me this, I'm just going to take it. And that's what the Eagles do. This is part of the reason why they lost the Super Bowl, by the way, and how they let another team hang around in a game that they should have just mudhole stomped them. The Eagles don't have an identity as an offense. Their identity is Jalen Hurts runs the football, Jalen Hurts passes the football. Most of the time, from an offensive standpoint, there's a design about how we're going to win the game, like what we're going to do. As you move up the food chain, you may have more than one option. Like, we're going to run the football here, we're going to throw it to this guy there, here's our alpha, whatever. What the Eagles have the luxury to do, because they're so deep, is they're like, oh, this is the guy that's going to win us this week. The problem that you run into when you run an offense like that is, like, when you just have to have an identity, you don't have one. So at the end of the second half, the Eagles basically just ran the football down the throat of the Vikings, like 11 straight plays, just running it down their throat. And they couldn't help themselves but like throw it here or there to be cute. And they still scored a touchdown. But instead of just sticking with this game plan, and you can see like DeAndre Swift did 28 for 175 and a touchdown, like, why Jalen Hurts even had as many passing yards as he did, I don't know, because like the Vikings just like could not stop the Eagles rushing attack. And for the life of me, I don't know why the Eagles were doing anything else. To give another example of what goes on with the Eagles and bad coaching is the announcers were literally pointing out at one point that like A.J. Brown is getting frustrated because he only had 6 targets, or at the time, I think he only had like 4 targets. And they're trying to get him involved in the game, and they're throwing like fades to him. And there's incompletions, which, when you're ahead, that's bad. It stops the clock. It's a free timeout for the other team. And you can have turnovers. And then the whole adage about football, like when you throw the football, like only, well, there's more than 3 things, but anyway, like you can get a sack, and the sack ended up pushing him out of field goal range. So instead of having the football late in the game in a 2-score game, or they They were only in a 1-score game. So they actually gave an opportunity to the Vikings because of poor management, and the Vikings did them one better, and they said, hey, we're not going to go for 2 when we should have gone for 2. But I mean, this is all the things that stack up to help you lose games. And that's how, like I said, the part of the reason why the Eagles lost in the Super Bowl is because of this lack of identity where they're kind of just like, well, we're going to give you the football. It's the same thing I kind of talked about with Kansas City last week. So other things to take away from this is, if there's any Eagles running backs on the wire, you're putting I would be putting them at the bottom of my bench, and because they're going to have their week. They're going to have their Kenny Gainwell week last year, their DeAndre Swift week this week. There's going to be a Rashad Penny week probably. There's probably even going to be a Boston Scott week. And if the tea leaves say this is the week to play him, then play him. A guy in my league didn't play DeAndre Swift. And I can kind of understand why after last week's usage and the elevation of Rashad Penny, but you got to play the tea leaves. The tea leaves last week said play Sky Moore. That blew up in your face. The tea leaves this week say to play DeAndre Swift. It's going to be the same tea leaves that say play Joshua Kelly if Austin Eckler's out. Like, you gotta say this is what the universe gives me, and I got to go with it. So going on, why I have the stat lines of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert is these guys are they don't have 40-degree days. Like, they just don't have 40-degree days. They are either they're boom or bust. They're going to lose you as many weeks as they're going to win you. From a certain, well, they're going to win you more weeks than they're going to lose you, but the weeks that they lose you, they're going to lose you. And when you have guys that are like, say, your wide receiver 1 that are putting up 4 catches for 50 yards and no touchdowns. AJ Brown tonight, he did 4 for 29. Like, that's not a wide receiver 1. That can never be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. Justin Jefferson, 11 for 159 because they have to get him the football as much as humanly possible. The Eagles, on the other hand, they go, oh, okay, well, we're going to give the ball to DeAndre Swift tonight. That's how we're going to win. We're going to throw to Devonta Smith tonight. That's how we're going to win. Dallas Goedert's going to have his nights. Dallas Goedert going 6 for 22 is not a tight end 1. That's going to lose you a week against a guy that rolls out like Luke Musgrave this week. So, I'm not saying that they're bad fantasy football plays. What I'm saying is, from a roster design standpoint, from a lineup design standpoint, you have to play these guys in your 2 slot or your flex slot, or you have to have a wide receiver 2 that allows you, in particular for Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, that allows you the ability to have to weather this the 40-degree days. You have to have the ability to do that, or these guys are just going to lose you those weeks. And to understand from a fantasy perspective last year, this is why I was so down on AJ Brown. When you look at these stats, he's going, in some leagues, he's going as a fringe first rounder, maybe a second rounder. I don't know how deep he falls. He was rated as wide receiver 9, I think, in a lot of leagues. When you look at these numbers, and people were projecting him out to be having a pathway to wide receiver 1, to be able to overdo his stats from last year. Oh, if the Eagles defense is a little bit worse, but and then that means they got to throw a little bit more in the fourth quarter. Well, now we have a guy that can go up and he compete with no, he can't. He's just not going to. It's not how the offense is designed to work. 3 for 32. That's going to lose you a week against a lot of guys. 1 for 7. This is the predictable stuff about fantasy football that as great of a player as AJ Brown is, he's going to lose you weeks. And there's going to be weeks that are AJ Brown weeks, and Devonta Smith loses those weeks, and it pushes you down the line of how you can win based off of the roster construction that you have. There's guaranteed losses built into these guys versus your opponents that have better roster or lineup construction than you do. So if you can trade, and I know the word trade is horrible in fantasy football, depending on your league. If you can, these are the pieces that you want to trade to go get a Justin Jefferson. These are the guys that hey, I'll give you AJ Brown for Justin Jefferson. What is the other piece I need to complete this trade? And this is probably not the week to try and trade, AJ Brown. but it also could be the week to trade A.J. Brown, because now all you need to do is like, hey, I'm giving you wide receiver 1 for wide receiver 1. Now what else do we need to put in this deal? And from a Dallas Goedert perspective, this is why in drafts you kind of just need to punt the position if you don't go hard in the paint for these guys, because you can go out and you can get a guy later in the draft, like we've been talking about, like your Luke Musgraves, your Dalton Kincaids, your Jake Fergusons. There's Chig might be a league winner this year. Like, these are the guys that you can go get because they can put the numbers up against Dallas Goedert. And Dallas Goedert, like, one of the great things about guys like Dallas Goedert is, yeah, he can go toe-to-toe with the Travis Kelce once or twice a year, but the rest of the time he just becomes like the guy that is in the tight end wasteland. And it's tough to you get the positional advantage you need to win using the guy, knowing that it's not going to be his week. It's just the Eagles offense is not built to have that guy eat every week. They are built to go, hey, how do we want to be cute and how do we want to win this week? Instead of having the identity to go like, what we're going to do? We're going to give 13 targets to A.J. Brown. That's how we're going to win. Like, we're going to force you to take that away. And the thing is, in the NFL, these teams are good enough to go, oh, this is what you don't want to do? Okay, we're going to dare you to do this. That's what they talked about in the Chargers Dolphins game last week, is that the Dolphins dared the Chargers to run the football, and guess what they did? They ran it down the Dolphins' throat, because that's how teams are designed. They'll go like, okay, you don't want to do something, we're going to make you do it. So anyway, probably a little bit longer than I wanted to go tonight, but like that's just my thought about what happened in this game. I don't think I have anything more than stash Ty Chandler at the bottom of your bench after waivers clear. If someone dropped Rashad Penny, stash him. Boston Scott's probably a stash, and you might want to consider trading the Philadelphia Eagles receivers, because they're going to have 40-degree days. So anyway, that's about it.